It's the Happy Families podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
When we are materialistic as parents, that is when we use materialistic gifts to say, I love you so much and here's what I'm giving you because of it, that actually enhances and builds materialism in our kids.
And now here's the stars of our show, my mum and dad.
Ho, 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 Merry Christmas. You're looking at me like there's a...
Is that the best ho, ho, ho you've got?
Well, no, but I don't want to be all silly about it and go all Santa.
Come on.
This is Dr. Justin Coulson doing a terrible Santa, obviously. Mrs. Happy Families has not been impressed. I'm the author of 6 books about raising happy families, my wife and co-host, the mum to our 6 daughters. Hey, we get awesome feedback from you via the Apple Podcasts app where people leave ratings and reviews, but also via podcasts at happyfamilies.com.au. And Dr. Andrew Hatch from Canada has sent us a voice memo. How awesome is this feedback?
My wife and I started listening to your podcast about 2-3 months ago, and we found the advice and counsel that you give to be the thing that we were looking for. Between the two of us, we have close to 15, 16 years of post-secondary education in childhood education, behavioral neuroscience. I'm a practicing clinician, and we felt like we've struggled raising our children and struggled trying to help them be the best they can be. And I'd just like to thank you for the tremendous difference that you're making for my family and I hope for many other families. I know both my wife and I share your podcast to everybody that we know, and hopefully you'll be able to continue doing this for many years to come.
We are so grateful for that feedback. Thank you, Andrew, for taking the time to send us a voice memo. If you would like to send us feedback, it makes our Christmas. It makes our day. We love getting your feedback about how the podcast has helped. You can email us podcasts with an S at happyfamilies.com.au. You can also just jump onto Apple Podcasts and leave a rating and review, because when you do that, other people get to find out about the show. Now, today's topic. I'm really excited about this. We received some feedback from somebody, again, via podcasts at happyfamilies.com.au. What was their question?
They mentioned that their children are obsessed with expensive presents that they can't afford as a family. They want to know how they can avoid disappointing their children on Christmas morning.
So this kind of taps into, there's a few different ways that we can approach this, but I want to talk specifically about the issue of materialism. Because whether you're rich or poor, whether you've got finances or and you're flush or you're completely out, the children do have expectations at Christmas. But there's some really cool science that's only been published just in the last couple of years that really develops this idea of materialism and where it comes from. Can I share it with you? I want to geek out.
You're going to geek. Oh, okay. All right.
This is Kylie.
Shoot me.
Whenever I start talking about science, guys are like, "Oh my goodness, can we just be real?" This is really real. So these scientists published in the Journal of Consumer Research. They expanded on some like decades of really cool research, and here's what they found. Children who receive material rewards from their parents are more likely to be materialistic because they see material goodies as a signal that they are valuable people, that they are worthy. So the material possessions basically say, I'm enhancing myself. It defines who I am. In other words, when we are materialistic as parents, that is when we use materialistic gifts to say, I love you so much and here's what I'm giving you because of it, that actually enhances and builds materialism in our kids. They feel like they need material things to demonstrate that they're of worth.
So that whole extrinsic motivation or extrinsic recognition helps them to feel of worth.
Yeah, when I've got things that are fancy, when I've got, the latest phone or the latest doodad, the latest gizmo that all the kids at school are talking about, then I've got status and I'm of worth. There's that extrinsic focus, and that's the materialistic pathway. And what happens there is, society as a whole certainly perpetuates and fosters that. The schoolyard, without question, can do that, but it actually starts in the home. And this research highlights that. There's also another really interesting thing that the researchers found, and that is that when parents are rejecting of their kids, when parents are not warm towards their children, then the kids just gravitate to those external materialistic symbols as a signal that I'm good enough.
Yep.
And so I reckon, now I'm not suggesting that this is the case for the person who emailed us. I'm sure that they're living in a beautiful home and looking after their family the best that they can. But it's so critically important that we don't foster insecurity in our children by making material rewards, material gifts, some sort of a symbol of how worthy they are. We actually need to create the connection and the relationship as the symbol, not the materialism. So that's my science geek out.
Well, I think it works really well into, I guess, where I'd like to take our conversation. I know how much you love to geek out with all of the science. And as I was listening to you, I think the thing that just really stands out to me is it's really about changing the focus of what we do at Christmas time with our children.
Well, not just at Christmas time, but right throughout the year. But certainly at Christmas, the whole thing, Santa's only going to give you a gift if you've been nice, not naughty. That's an extrinsic marker of your value to Santa or to me as a person.
Yeah.
And I reckon there's a really big problem with this. This extrinsic reward actually promotes a materialistic approach to life.
I have actually never thought about it like that. Obviously, we've had lots of discussions around Santa in our home and, kind of what part he's going to play in our Christmas as a family. But I've never actually thought about that extrinsic recognition.
Yeah, a bit mind blown, right? But I don't know if I've ever even been explicit with you about it, but in our home, we don't do a lot when it comes to giving the kids big gifts and making a big deal about materialistic stuff. We just don't do that. And I've always just had it in my mind, maybe I've never even told you, the more we do that, the more kids actually feel that they're of value when they're getting that stuff. But when they're not getting that stuff, they start to question their value. Whereas our approach is very different. We actually try to minimize a focus on anything materialistic or extrinsic without being all austere and making our kids feel impoverished. I mean, we still live, I think, a really nice life with our family, but it's not about the stuff. Stuff doesn't make you happy. It's about the connection.
And I love that focus. I love that we get to spend time with our children in really meaningful ways as a result.
So after the break, we're going to share 5 ways, regardless of your financial position, 5 ways that you can help your kids to move away from materialism and have those high expectations from Santa at Christmas.
It's the Happy Families Podcast.
Imagine a home where discipline got results without anyone having to feel bad or in trouble. The Do's and Don'ts of Discipline is a webinar to help parents set limits with love, compassion and humanity. Find it now at happyfamilies.com.au/shop.
It's the Happy Families Podcast, the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now. And we have been talking today about how we can help our children to
not be so materialistic. And the reality is they're going to be, right? Like if all their friends are getting this really cool thing, they're probably going to want it. And sometimes I think it's okay to get it for them. Like sometimes that's fine. I don't want this podcast to sound like we're all like, don't let the kids have cool stuff, because that's not it at all. If you're in a position to do it and you want to spoil them every now and again, go for your life, fill your boots, have fun with that. But it's not always going to make them happy and they're not always going to remember it. So definitely it's fun to have fun with gift giving. But over the we've been married for 22, 23 years. And I reckon over that time period, probably 20 of those years, we have been so tight financially and we've been thinking, how in the world are we going to get through Christmas? And so I want to talk about 5 different ways that we can remove the focus of materialism from our kids so that they can have a wonderful Christmas without being so obsessed with getting the expensive gifts.
Well, I think one of the first things is just not trying to keep up with the Joneses. I know I was a Jones.
Your maiden name is Jones. Kylie Jones. Don't try to keep up with the Joneses.
There wasn't much to keep up with. But I think that's really important that, whatever your focus is at Christmas, it's about your family, not what, the next door neighbours are doing or what the family down the street's doing.
And we've even said that to our kids. They're like, oh, but so-and-so got such and such. And we say, I know, and their family can afford that this year, but our family's not in a position to do that. So we're going to be grateful for what we've got and we're going to shift the focus, but not trying to keep up is a critical way to do that.
And so one year, one of the things that we did, actually one of my favourite Christmases that we've had with our children, is we decided that we were going to have a homemade Christmas. I was right into my crafting back then and loved spending time, working with my hands. And I thought it would be really nice to start to inspire the children's creativity, firstly, but secondly, teach them skills.
And thirdly, we were broke.
Yeah.
We were dead broke. We had no money. So homemade Christmas was basically we made stuff for each other.
Yeah, so they got one-on-one time with me because we sat down, we talked about the secret sister name that they'd pulled out of the hat and what they might like for Christmas. And one of my favourite gifts, I've actually just been going through some of the kids' keepsakes and found it the other day. Ella, she was probably about maybe 8 when we did this Christmas. She made up a poem that became a story. It was a little story about it's time to get up. It's time to get up, it's time to get up, it's time to get up for school today, or something like that. It was a little rhyme that she made. And so she actually stepped her little sister,
who was starting school the next month.
That's right, who was going to start school, stepped her through the routine of what she needed to do in the morning to get ready for school. And she then used her little sister and took photos of the two of them doing those things like brushing her teeth and getting dressed.
They got dressed up in their school uniforms and took the photos and put it all together as an album with the poem to guide her sister through the morning for when she started big school.
And it was such a beautiful gift. Like I said, I just pulled it out the other day and I couldn't help smiling because it was such a simple thing, and yet it's something that they'll be able to look back on for years.
So basically that Christmas there was no materialism because we weren't spending any money. It was actually what I'm building for you, what I'm making for you, what I'm creating. And it was so good, like you said, relationally and creatively. So that's the first idea. Just don't try to keep up with people. Go your own way, do your own thing. Second thing, what I love about you, Kylie, is you love to shop.
I do love to shop.
That's actually not what I love about you. But the reason you love to shop is because you're a savvy shopper. And so all year long, you know that at the end of the year, we're probably going to do, something to wear, something to read, something they want, something they need. And so as the year goes on, you're actually looking out for opportunities to snag bargains, which means when we get to Christmas, we've already got most of the stuff that we need. We've paid peanuts for it because you've got it on special throughout the year. And that's our second idea for removing the materialism. Just let the kids know this is how we do Christmas. That's the way it's going to be. The third thing is a really simple one as well. And I don't think it requires a lot of time and focus. Just don't make it a big deal. Don't carry on about how much expensive stuff we're doing or how we're doing this or I paid this much for that or this was the really big gift this year. Like just don't make it a big deal. Sometimes kids get big stuff. Sometimes they don't.
And I guess that's what I love about what we do with the 4 gifts. It's just there's no price tag attached to it. Everybody gets 4 gifts and because it all fits into those different themes, each of the children are just happy with the 4 gifts that they get. They're not comparing with the other person, what book did you get, because a book's a book.
Yeah.
And clothing, they're just excited to get a few, new outfits. So I really like the fact that because of the way we've set things up for our kids, it's not a big deal.
So the last 2 ideas that we've got, let's go through these fairly briefly, but they are, I think, the 2 most important ones. I'm going to combine them. Number 4, just change the focus. I reckon there's a couple of things that you were talking to me about before that are worth highlighting here.
So 2 things that we've done, which I have absolutely loved, and they've completely changed the way we did Christmas that year. We went on our very first international family holiday. We've never been on an international family holiday.
It was like 4 years ago. And let me give you some context here because this is important. We decided that we were going to take the family away for Christmas, but we also wanted it to be not just about the family and not just, indulgent, but we wanted it to be for a good cause. And so at a charity auction, I bought a holiday to Bali at that charity auction, which meant that the money that I was paying for the holiday was actually being donated to a charity rather than just paying for a holiday. It felt good to spend money on a holiday for us and know that we were helping people. So that was a really cool thing.
We probably wouldn't have had a holiday if it wasn't for the auction because it's not money that we would have normally spent on ourselves like that. But because of the focus, it allowed us the opportunity to benefit as well, which was so much fun.
A really quick story about that as well. When I was bidding, I was actually goofing off. I didn't really intend to buy the holiday. And somebody else put up their hand at the same time that I bid. And the auctioneer said, "You've got it and you've got it." And then he pointed at someone else whose hand was going up and said, "And you've got it too." And he sold all 3 of them.
He did.
There was only one on offer, but he actually said, "Nope, all 3 of you and you've all paid that much money." And I was like, oh no, because I didn't really mean to buy it. But anyway, we donated and we won a holiday. Well, we won. We won a holiday at an auction that we paid for, and we helped other people out, which was great.
Well, what was awesome about that was that it was a holiday for 10 people.
Yeah.
We only have 8 people in our family.
I love that. We only have 8 people in our family.
We got to take my mum and dad who'd never been overseas before,
Yep.
which was super, super fun. And they got to experience things that they'd never experienced. But the thing that was actually super special about this was by the time we went to actually book the holiday, the only time we could do this was literally over Christmas Day and Boxing Day.
Yeah, so none of this was actually meant to happen like this, but it's just how it all worked out. So we were away for Christmas on this holiday that I didn't mean to buy, but it was for a charity and it was for a good cause, and it all worked out really nicely because of that.
We didn't have presents that year. We literally, that year was just about experiencing another place in the world together as a family, and our focus was just family time, and it to date is a highlight.
So that changes the focus completely. The final way to move away from materialism with the kids?
I think you have to be an example. It has to start with you.
Yeah, like if you're all about the presents and if you're all about what'd you get, if you're all about filling up underneath the tree and making it a huge deal, then it's probably going to happen that the kids are going to follow your lead. In my webinar, How to Unspoil the Kids for Christmas, I talked about how there are 3 levels to Christmas. The first one is the Santa Claus, ho, 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 Merry Christmas. It's the too much food and too many presents. And you're going to have an awesome Christmas when you do that. Like there's nothing the matter with level 1 Christmas. Level 2 Christmas is where you've got the Christmas carols and you maybe put a nativity scene up, and you do some of the stuff that a lot of people will say, well, this is the true meaning of Christmas, and you focus on the traditional Christmas things that we do. It's probably going a little bit deeper with, having some time with family and really focusing on family time. And then there's the level 3 Christmas. Now, for those who have got a faith tradition, then that's going to be a really heavy emphasis on faith. But for those who don't, you can still really go to a level 3 Christmas by focusing on generosity and service and sacrifice, and not thinking about yourself, but thinking about other people at a time where there's a lot of really vulnerable people who are really challenged. And I think that's what we're really talking about here. Be an example by shifting the focus away from self towards others.
I love it. Makes me happy.
Well, I love talking about Christmas. Christmas is the most wonderful time of the year, and I love being able to do it on the podcast. If you've enjoyed the podcast, we would so very much appreciate you taking a minute or two, maybe over the Christmas break, when you've got a minute or two, jumping into Apple Podcasts and leaving a rating and review, letting people know how you're enjoying it and why. It means so much to us, and it helps other people to find the show and make their families happier. We appreciate Justin Rulon from Bridge Media for producing the podcast, and our executive producer, as always, is Craig Bruce. If you'd like more info about making your family happy, you can find it all at happyfamilies.com.au.